Greetings tonight, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight's video is going to be going through the Pleiadian contact reports from the original Pleiadian messages from 1975. And it is really about all of the technology that the Pleiadians kind of hint towards that could be in the future of humanity. Now, I've kind of went through and I flagged some important spiritual teachings and Pleiadian teachings about technology that would help you understand a little bit about New Earth and what we are seeing humanity evolve to. So I'm going to start off with the very first part where we're talking about the spiritual teachings. And I just want to say, I'm going to be going through this book and I probably won't have time to do a live chat afterwards, but I will take a note of any of your questions or your comments. And then that way I can actually do a second video answering some of those questions. I want to give myself a little bit of time, do some more research in case your questions are of something that is not particularly in this book. So I would like to just have a little bit more time to answer some of your questions. So we'll do another video based on this topic because this is really important to our future. So this is about the stages that a civilization goes through and reaches. So this is talking about the present stage of the average Earth human being. So the present stage of the average Earth human being is in the rational life, which is where primary recognition of the real reality and stage of knowledge-related development happens. I'm sorry, I think I'm having something in my throat here. So research of first spiritual insights and their use, or spiritual healing and telepathy, etc., happens at this stage. So if you want to think about this being what the present stage of the average Earth human was in 1975, this is basically what Semjase is telling Billy Meier. So think about this in terms of 1975 message and then what we can apply to today's world in 2020. So the primary development of knowledge and wisdom happens at this stage, and then we start entering into the intellectual life. And this is where the high level development of the intellect happens and high technology. Second use of the power of spirit with the first cognitions and primary generating of life forms. The present stage of the educated Earth human being, scientists, and other types of educated types of people that are trying to progress human life. This is their stage where they have realization and use of knowledge, truth, and wisdom. And there's a slow breakdown of religious acceptances, because the first utilization of knowledge and wisdom is happening past the old religious ideas, but more moving into the sciences and the spiritual knowledge beyond religions. So there's an acknowledgement and utilization of the laws of nature, creation of hyper technology, and the second generating of life forms happens. There's also a natural use of knowledge and wisdom in recognition of spiritual forces and further breakdown of religious assumptions, and then life and knowledge of wisdom, truth, and logic. And this is the present stage of a few border scientists and spiritual scientists who are really testing kind of the fringe science of like quantum physics and quantum mechanics. So this is where primary recognition of reality as the real absolutum. And this is the fourth stage of real life, where clear knowledge about reality as the real absolutum happens. And this is where we start moving more into higher technology. And we move into consciousness-related forces and the utilization of spiritual and consciousness-related forces helping to generate of first viable life forms. And this is where it indicates the potential for man to create living organisms within his sciences and technologies when they reach a certain level of sophistication. We are just beginning to see this experimentally in laboratories around the world. This is what Billy Meier is saying, and we have observed the extraterrestrials apparently doing this already in a number of other UFO contact cases where living forms are seen to have been created by those ETs to carry out certain tasks. The Pleiadians use part mechanical and part organic automatons or robots to perform specific jobs aboard their mother ships, such as care and maintenance of their spacecraft. The beam ships also have an organic part in the control computer system, which has rational intelligence and can be communicated with telepathically. Thus, the beam ships, once finished and commissioned, become veritable living entities, having a mental and composite body and equipment and living mind. This exceeds the wildest imagination of our science fiction authors, and once again confirms that truth is stranger than fiction. Now we enter into creational life from this point. That was the early start of it. We are in stage 5, where we have the generating and controlling of life forms, such as AI and other types of intelligent programs that we are creating, creation of mechanical and equipmental viable life forms, and the development of spiritual and consciousness-related forces for the mastery of material and organic life forms. The present stages of the Pleiadian races are a little bit past the 5th, where it's volitionary mastery of life and all its forms and types. So this is where the Pleiadians have gotten to, and this is where humans are moving up to in terms of their development of AI and their development of technology. So that was the very first part. I just wanted to read to you just to tell you a little bit about the stages. We're going to go into all of the technology that is presented in this, so you just get a little bit more of an idea of what the future new Earth can look like. So man in space flight here. In reality, we, the Pleiadians, are just like Earth humans, but our knowledge and wisdom are far superior than theirs, also in technical respects. Man on Earth has taken his first very small steps towards cosmic space flight, but this means nothing more than the first still primitive attempts. Even though he has reached the moon with his rockets, man has not yet reached cosmic space. In his current form, he also would never be able to reach it. For this, a propulsion system capable of penetrating hyperspace and nullifying the immense distance is necessary. Space and time are not conquered by space and time, but by spacelessness and timelessness, which means that space and time collapse within themselves and become unidirectional null time. In this way, just fractions of a second suffice for the passage through millions of light years without almost any time loss, because null time paralyzes space and time. Okay, so that was the first part, just to give you an idea. Now, this is important to the Pleiadian technology, and this is where the warnings come to humanity, where if they are going to advance technologically, they must never underestimate the laws of the universe that are found in nature. And they must keep a spirit consciousness while they are also trying to move towards technological achievements. So the Pleiadians say this with their spiritual teachings, that above everything, there remains but one that possesses the power of life and death over all creatures. It is creation alone, which has laid its laws over everything, laws that are irrefutable and have eternal validity. and man is able to identify them in nature if he makes the effort. They show him the way of life and the path to spiritual and consciousness-related greatness, which embodies the goal of life and the development of all aspects related to the consciousness. So I wanted you to keep that in mind, that these beings are describing their technology, but they're very much aware of how all the universal laws and every answer that you need about the universe and about yourself can actually be observed in nature. Here is the next part where the Pleiadians are actually talking about how they have assisted certain inventors telepathically. So this was an interesting part here. Okay, so the Pleiadians say this: we only have the dutiful task to preserve the evolving and already existing human life in the cosmos. And this means that we endeavor to keep order and monitor certain life. We generate contracts here, or contacts here, and there with inhabitants of different worlds, if our directives allow us. Single out some of them and provide them with explanations, but only if a race is developing towards a higher level and slowly starts thinking. Then we slowly familiarize them with the thought that they are not the only thinking beings in the universe. And now and then we also assist telepathically to instill certain cognitions toward the discovery of technical inventions that are needed at the present time. So there's an indication that many of the inventions that may have helped human life is something that if it has come through a vision or inspiration to certain individuals, then possibly the Pleiadians have helped with that. They do continue to say this, that when Billy asks them a question, why do you people not appear to the masses and show yourself to the broad public? And why don't you get in touch with the various governments? So the Pleiadians say this: without exception, all governments on Earth consist of human beings who are greedy for power and gain. Under a smokescreen of peace and friendship, they would only want to seize our beam ships in order to completely tyrannize Earth with them. And additionally, they would attempt to conquer the cosmos because they know no bounds. They are not even capable for once to create peace and friendship among the countries of Earth, let alone among the people within their own country. How then would they be capable of handling such powerful devices as our beam ships and the many technical fittings aboard? There is no interest in showing ourselves publicly to the broad masses yet. Their consciousness is still short and small, limited through religious enslavement. In their limited reasoning, Earth humans would also venerate us as gods, as they did in the former times, and on the other hand, many people among them would gain possession of our beam ships. So this is why they haven't shown themselves to the masses completely, but they have helped telepathically give visions to some individuals that they feel that can help, but they're not necessarily connected to the government. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So this other part here is about where mankind can go in terms of life expectancy. Okay, so this is great news. If you're somebody that feels that part of a progression of humanity is to live longer lives, then this is what they have to say. So this is where Billy asks a question and says, it's often written that star people can grow very old, even millions of years. Is that correct? And this is what Semjase says. A human being may become hundreds or even thousands of years old when he has reached a certain spiritual and consciousness-related state of relative perfection and a correspondingly high and sound way of living physically. But after the state of about 40 to 60 million years, the spirit no longer requires a purely material body and becomes a half-spirit body. And then it goes on to say, well, the most miraculous thing about the Pleiadians with Billy Meier's experience is this here. So Billy says, Well, I am not experienced in guessing people of your type, but according to my measures, you should be about 32 or 33 years old. And he's talking to the female Pleiadian. And she says, well, this would really be my age by terrestrial standards, judging from my looks. But what you do not know, though, is that our average life expectancy is very high and amounts to several hundreds of years, and that is about 1,000 years. Judging from that, I am still very young at 330 years old, which corresponds to about 33 years by your standards. So she looks 33, but she's actually 330. So if you can think about the consciousness-related aspect of that, plus also the technical help such as healing beds and regeneration type of technologies, which will help the cells turn over quickly, will repair the cell damage, and will basically regenerate and heal the body completely and allow the body to live so long and to preserve it in that state. That's the future of technology in terms of medical advancements that the Pleiadians do have, and that this is a vision of possibly the new Earth for humans as well. And remember, once again, all of that technology lies in the secrets of nature. So it's about really utilizing the laws within nature and applying that scientifically to create this type of technology for humanity. Now, here's a really interesting thing about language machines. So Semjase is speaking in German to Billy, who is in the Swiss Alps at this time, but she's speaking German to him because he speaks German. And this is what happens. So Billy says, "You speak perfect German. Where did you learn to master this language?" And Semjase says, "A good question that is easy to answer. Just like human beings on Earth, we also have to learn a language. Yet this is much easier for us and presents less trouble. We possess all Earth languages that were ever spoken in ancient times or are currently being used. That is to say, we have detailed recordings of them in the most diverse formats. Language training courses, as you would call them, were compiled from them. And this work is performed by language scientists and machines, similar to what you call computers. Further, machines of a similar type serve to transmit the desired language and instill it in us, meaning to instill the language straight directly into their brain, into their mind. This means we are connected to such a machine or apparatus, which then transmits the desired language. And this occurs during a machine-induced hypnotic-like state. So this is very much like the scene in the Matrix, where you can plug yourself into some type of apparatus machine, buy headgear, something of that sort, surround yourself with the energy of the machine, and you will all of a sudden have this download of information in a hypnotic-like state. In this way, the definitions and meanings of the language become implanted and registered fully. This process takes 21 days to learn all the required language of Earth. Then we require another 9 to 10 days in order to also speak the language correctly. This means that we must practice its correct application and pronunciation with the help of machines and the language scientists. In this manner, it takes us about 30 to 31 days to learn a language. People on Earth are already operating in a similar fashion by using tape recorders in their language courses, particularly at so-called language institutes. And this is already the first step towards constructing and using apparatuses and machines such as ours. Remember, this is 1975, so that's why she's talking about tape recorders. And she is hinting towards computers, but obviously their technology is far advanced, where they basically are hooked up to a machine-like computer, and then that's how they download all of the languages so that they are able to speak in all of the languages of Earth, needing to communicate with whoever they need to. And then this is a really interesting part here about hyperspace and hyperdrive. So this leads Billy into more questions after the language, the language question here. So Billy says, well, my next question refers to what you have already explained during our first meeting, and people on Earth will never be capable of traveling into the true deep outer space unless they invent another method of propulsion. I can only imagine what you mean with the term propulsion, that it must involve a form of beam drive, a hyperdrive, so to speak. In my opinion, it would need to consist of a drive that alters matter in some way, probably while the speed of light is exceeded. In the process, the beam ship is hurled into hyperspace, in which space and time are paralyzed, as you have already explained. I assume that space and time collapse in a manner whereby they are somehow completely nullified. Semjase says, yes, you would make a great scientist, and this is phenomenal because considering all of your knowledge is based on autodidactic, which is self-education ways. You are completely correct in your assumption. To travel through real outer space, one needs a drive that surpasses the speed of light many times over. This propulsion can only become activated, however, when the speed of light has already been reached. As a result, another drive is needed to regulate the normal speed up to that of light. This means that then a beam ship needs two propulsion systems. First, a normal drive, which permits acceleration up to and below the speed of light. And second, a hyperdrive, as you call it. A drive, therefore, which generates a velocity 1,000,000 and billion times that of light. The hyperspeed, which enables us to enter hyperspace, a space in which every mass expands in proportion to the increase in speed. Consequently, time and space collapse, and they become null time and null space. That is to say, space and time simply cease to exist. So they basically reach their 0 point. They cease to exist. There's no time, no space when they are trying to move into this hyperspace. And exactly by this manner is created the fact that distances of countless light years can be traversed in a fraction of a second without causing a shift in time. Billy says, does this mean then that the same amount of time passes for a beam ship and its passengers as it would on the home planet or on some other planet or star? Surely. For example, when we leave our Pleiades and require about 7 hours to get to Earth, then 7 hours pass on our own planet and on Earth as well. It takes us this long because we must first fly with the normal drive beyond the reach of the planets. Only then, far away in space, can we convert to hyperspeed. So that's interesting that it's only 7 hours for people of the Pleiades to get to Earth, but the 7 hours also pass on their planet as well as Earth. So there's non-locality happening here where everything is connected, and we're seeing that. A long way from your own solar system. Oh, so we can convert. Yeah, this is the part here. It takes us this long because we must first fly with the normal drive beyond the reach of the planets. Only then, far away in space, can we convert to hyperspeed. A long way from your solar system, we exit hyperspace and convert to normal propulsion as we continue to fly here. We are never allowed to penetrate hyperspace too close to a planet. Hyperspace may only be penetrated very far in outer space, otherwise planets would be pulled in. Also concerning the exit from hyperspace, you figured it out entirely correct. It is also a fact that some comets originated in this manner, but only a few. Most of them were guided on their dangerous path by other natural events. Billy said, well, maybe that's how various huge comets have turned into storming and dangerous cosmic speedsters through the fault of irresponsible star travelers trying to move into hyperspace too close to planets. And she says, well, sometimes that's true. That's how some of these rocks have, flung out of their orbit. So she does confirm that. But the fact is that such events are caused by irresponsibility because it exits throughout outer space, not only on Earth. Irresponsibility is evident also when new, highly developed intelligences perform their first ventures into hyperspace too close to other planets. The safety rule is calculable and states that hyperspeed is only to be initiated 153 million kilometers away from the nearest planets. This is very interesting, Billy says. But how does hyperdrive work, and what about the normal drive? Semjase says, I am not at liberty to give you specifics on this, unfortunately. If scientists on Earth obtained more details, they would resolve their propulsion problems in a very short time. This is neither in our nor the cosmic interests. For right now, for the Earth human is still not liberated and spiritually mature enough to fly into space. But at the given time, which isn't very far off, he will find the solution to his problem himself. I'm only permitted to tell you that many of your scientists are already on the right track and are theoretically working at and researching the necessary propulsion systems. I may only tell you also that in some basic form, these propulsion systems are already known in outline form to your scientific community as light emission and tachyon drives. The light emission drive serves as normal propulsion and has the function of propelling the beam ship onto planets or within their vicinity up to 153 million kilometer distance, the safe distance that is. Then the tachyon drive, among others, is activated when greater distances need to be traversed. This is one of the hyperdrives which are capable of conquering hyperspace and space and time. We call both of these propulsion systems by other names, but the meaning is the same. And we have a different language than people on Earth, and for this reason, I need to explain it to you in terms that you can understand. And can you tell me more about propulsion or the actual processes? That's what Billy asks. Semjase says, no, I'm not allowed to do so because it would reveal the secret of the whole propulsion system and the generation and harnessing of tachyons, along with the secret of the emission drive. So Billy says, well, one thing still interests me, though. As I assess and ponder it, the form of the beam ship plays no decisive role, and yet a disc-like ship would be the ideal shape because surely in the atmosphere it offers the least aerodynamic resistance, which might also be the case in water. Semjase says, certainly, you have hit the nail on the head again. Basically, though, the form really does make no difference. However, the disc shape ensures the least resistance in an atmosphere, and besides, it offers the largest surface and the best shape that allows the drives on them or through them to become fully effective. Well, this seems clear to me, Billy says, but how is it possible for a beam ship to attain immense speeds within the gravity field of a planet or in its atmosphere without burning up or having the passengers succumb to the immense pressure? Our ships are both organic and inorganic, and they are controlled by conscious thought themselves. So this is very easy to explain and no secret any longer to the Earth human, at least not to the scientists. The beam ship is surrounded by a radiation protection shield that causes every little current of air to glide off without pushing against it. The same thing also occurs in outer space, which simply swarms with inconspicuous particles. Thus, this radiation protection shield has the purpose of protecting the beam ship against extraneous influences and resistance, without destroying or pushing against anything that collides with the shield. Anything that penetrates or offers resistance is simply deflected without pushing against it. Pushing against it would mean resistance and would remove the possibility of unlimited speed. Through the deflective quality of the radiation shield, another important effect is triggered, which is, of course, of great and vital importance to the passengers. The deflection technique of the radiation shield simultaneously neutralizes the gravitational force of a planet. But this does not mean that gravity is simply destroyed, pushed aside, or nullified. The air, as well as some rays or particles and magnetism, are simply deflected in the same way. As a result, Its own normal gravitational and attraction forces prevail within the beam ship. This means, therefore, that a beam ship bears the exact same gravitational force on board as also prevails on the Earth. Besides, the gravitational pull of a planet is not always equally intense, but it also undergoes a certain change, a factor scientists will discover in the near future. By gliding off the radiation protection shield, that is, the sliding off of gravity and magnetism, respectively, the beam ship practically becomes a miniature independent planet which can travel without risk through any atmosphere at nearly the speed of light. Due to the fact that the gravity of the planet involved no longer has an influence on the beam ship, the passengers feel as normal and unhampered as if they were on the planet, assuming, of course, that the planet corresponds with their anatomical capacities and is not subject to greater attractive forces or gravitational forces. The attraction force inside the beam ship is adjusted to suit the passengers, of course, and is absolutely controllable. When beam ship passengers from other worlds move about on foreign planets with a hostile atmosphere or hostile gravitational forces, they use space suits and small portable devices that generate for the entities the identical radiation protection shield as that on their own beam ship. And then Billy says, well, this is very detailed, but can you give me the technical details for the construction of such a device? Semjase says, I'm not allowed to do that, but I can assure you that your scientists are already working on the basis of such devices, and the day is not far off when they will manufacture them. However, it lies in the framework of evolution that the Earth human must first develop more in consciousness and spiritually before he will solve these secrets and not use them simply to hurt others. But even then, the great danger exists that the barbaric Earth people will use their technical knowledge and capabilities and their technical inventions viciously and greedily to satisfy their lust for power. This has happened before and will happen again, not only with terrestrial humankind, but other human beings on other worlds as well. But when the time comes that man attains the required technology to fly not only to Earth's moon, but to other planets, he may not do so carelessly and with hopes of remaining victorious at all times. Many dangers lurk in outer space of varying degrees, and other cosmic inhabitants are not leaving themselves helplessly vulnerable to an attack by another race either. Fatal defeats and total enslavement could be the result for Earth's humanity, which would be the equivalent to reverting back into primeval times. It is also quite possible that the planet Earth could be completely destroyed because the technological prerequisites for this have been created up to the last relative perfection by the numerous human and non-human races in outer space. If the Earth human wants to carry his barbaric lust and greed for power into space, he must be prepared for his own total annihilation and the fact that no other beings from other planets will rush to his aid. However, the Earth human must also be prepared to defend himself against evil intruders, which he can only accomplish through a total unification of all nations of your planet. Okay, so the Pleiadians are very much into globalization in terms of uniting the world against any outside invaders in a future, in a distant future, or maybe not so distant. The dangers from outer space are great, and they can lurk in all corners of the galaxy. But usually you can defend yourselves out of necessity, and you can do it radically if you move through consciousness-related development. So this is basically why they are saying that the technological advancements are needed. It says here, therefore, peace is observed and it is implemented by logical or illogical force if necessary. The Earth human must consider these things when he will forge into outer space in the near future. Other cosmic races will not allow themselves to be senselessly attacked or forced into exile, enslavement, or exploitation, as is usually the case among terrestrial peoples. They will defend themselves with might, and for a long time still, they will remain infinitely superior to all of Earth humans' technology. Wherever this is not the case, they are often under the protection of other, more highly developed intelligences whose technology has achieved the last relative perfection. It is the only way to preserve peace and avoid death and destruction throughout entire galaxies of the universe. The Earth human must be informed of all of this because his consciousness-related reasoning is still very underdeveloped. And man on Earth must get accustomed to the thought that his predecessors have forced all of mankind and Earth itself almost to the brink of ruin and had to partially evacuate the planet in a wild escape. So it should serve as a warning to him that thirst for power and barbarism are attributes that bring death. So this is an important part here. They're saying that our technology needs to raise to the level of our consciousness, and then that is how we ensure that we are basically on the same level of other advanced beings that are technologically advanced, and that peace can be had through this means. So when humans evolve consciously and they also evolve technologically, they will not pose as such a threat, and they'll be able to have more closer relations to the more advanced beings out there in the universe. And this is kind of an interesting part technologically she was talking about. So this part is about the different types of UFOs that they have, just as we have different types of cars. You know, you have your more advanced technical car, and you have your, you know, your basic car that you can drive. So this is what they say here. Semjase says this, and this is still 1975, but this is a different month, February. And this is what she says. So now I want to tell you something that will surely please you. I will receive a new beam ship, which you can also photograph at close range in order to get rather good photos. Unfortunately, the automatic beams are still installed in my current ship, which would destroy your films up to about 100 meters away. That is exactly 90 meters away. So she's saying that the other ship that she had appeared in before, face-to-face with Billy, that he wouldn't even be able to take a picture of it. That's how highly advanced it is, and also the radiation shield. So she has another ship, which is the ones that you see in the photos, which some people say they look fake, but they are a type of ship that could be processed in the way that Billy would need to have some kind of proof. And this is what she said about technology here, is that the radiation of these ships isn't harmful to living organisms. None of our ships are. As I said, we would want to make sure that it would not destroy your films. And so this is the important aspect of it, is that they have been able to develop a radiation, which is what Earth needs to do, but they were able to develop a radiation and use it as a protective shield around the ship that's not harmful to living organisms. So that's a problem for scientists to solve, but that's what she explained there. And that was just like a quick thing that I found on that part. And then she goes to say this, you know, that there are bases that are so well constructed that are hidden away on Earth. And this is what the Pleiadians say. We have our bases on Earth as well as on many other planets where we stay continually. We also have such a base in this country, Switzerland. It is located high up in the mountains. There I have my main whereabouts when I am on the Earth. In addition, we still have some other major stations that are distributed all over the world. However, they are all built so securely that it would be impossible to find them when one doesn't know them exactly. Moreover, I also travel a lot and have to fulfill my duties on various worlds. I also often go on visits to the homeland, as you tend to say, and thus I often stay in the Pleiades, as we tentatively call it right now for you. So that is some proof right there that the Pleiadians have their bases all over the earth, and they are created in such a way that they are very hard to find unless they want you to find them, because their technology is so advanced, and they can hide them away in that way. There is a important part about creations in regard to the idea of creating robots and AI and advanced technology. This is an important part about remembering something about creation. And this is based on some of the Pleiadian spiritual teachings. Those who are rich in spirit are free of all boundaries of any restriction and the material self-awareness, and are therefore in constant touch with creation itself. In the case of the human, the weight of the material principle prevails. In the not too distant future, terrestrial science will discover this principle in the substance matter. Creation is included along with everything that was created, with everything that unfolds itself and develops further. Only the unrestricted spirit and creation itself represents true freedom, true perfection, true cognition, power, love, knowledge, truth, and wisdom. It is the absolutes. All of these are the creative self. In order to gain anything truly excellent in life, the human must be loyal to what is creative, the unrestricted and unlimitable. Everything that is limited and restricted brings irreality and problems. So what she's trying to say is that if you are in touch with the spiritual knowledge that everything is one and is connected and everything is part of creation itself, then you will find unity within all of man's creations. So this is why she is saying here that science is moving towards this way, that terrestrial science are discovering the principle of matter and learning how to manipulate it in ways where they can create different things, life forms, and other types of forms of life, flora, fauna, things like that. And so there's an idea that if you are in touch with this unrestricted spirit of creation, then you will not fear going forwards into the future, knowing that it is part of this development and trying to move a species towards true perfection, true cognition, power, love, knowledge, truth, and wisdom, and also freedom to be able to explore the infinite ability of creation from this place. So that was an important teaching based on creational life. And this is what she has to say here. So this is one thing about the radiation phenomena. So this is where talking about how it's about natural rectification. None of their technology is harmful to the body. So this is going to be the quest for humanity and scientists on Earth, is how to create technology using the elements from the Earth and using it in such a way that it is not harmful to the human body, not harmful to the plants, to the animals, and to the environment at large. So this is what Semjase says here about the ships and the radiation, more on this. So Semjase says that the film negatives have become unusable because of this radiation, in regards to Billy saying, "Thanks, Semjase. How does it stand now with the film and the photo negatives that I gave to you? Do you still need those?" And she says, "We have already worked on them and have analyzed the phenomena. However, the film and the negatives become became unusable through this. Too bad, but what have you found out, and why did the radiation phenomena become visible? That's what Billy said. Semjase said, it only concerns atmospheric disturbances, which will dissolve in a few months. They come from your system's satellite, Saturn, which currently influences the Earth's atmosphere. So Saturn is a big one that influences, the pull on our planet and our own atmosphere. Through these disturbances, particularly the antenna's conducting beam and the energy collecting beam, as well as the regeneration radiation, become visible. The antenna's conducting beam and the energy collecting beam appear as a fine line of energy over the beam ship, while the regeneration radiation becomes visible beneath the ship in various hues. So Billy says, will you speak of regeneration radiation? Is the captured energy regenerated again after consumption? And this is where she says, the energy only becomes used and regenerated again for the radiation drive. It is not consumed, however, as you said. Our whole technology is aligned towards natural rectification, but not towards destruction. So Billy says, I understand the natural principle is thus implosion and regeneration rather than explosion and destruction. And Semjase says, you certainly couldn't have expressed it more precisely. So that's a challenge, right? Like, how do we have technology that's going to be regenerating rather than destructive towards, human cells or everything that's around us in the environment? But that is a problem to solve. Then here is a part here on material life. Okay, so this was another spiritual teaching she wanted to teach about material life in general. Life on Earth offers no full satisfaction to human beings. It is not the entirety of existence. The real is found on the other side of the material world. Material life only serves as a guide in order to reach the fine-sided and the spiritual. Material life is only the area of activity that gives human beings conditions and purposes in order to establish relationships with the spirit and the all greatest, the creational. It is completely wrong to restrict the field of view of life only to observable phenomena and to let the valuation of objective worth determine things. The highness and greatness of life depend on to what extent it is raised to the law of the innermost life in the highest being. The relationships between human beings are only justified as long as they do not distract from the internal laws of the spiritual nature. Neither social welfare nor national improvement are possible through merely adhering to shadows and disregarding the essential substance. The core of the truth does not belong to an individual human being alone, because the truth forms being and life of everything that exists at all. Only that which is one and united can be indivisible and all-inclusive within a self-identical existence. This is the full extent of achievements and the culmination point of all aspirations and ideals of life. In this integral spiritual view of life, the ethical basis of social and domestic relationships is rooted. Society is the totality of the individuals, intended to pierce through the veil and to enter into the realms of the immortal being, into the creation itself. Okay, so that is important if you want to kind of reflect on those words. But I thought that was a really great reminder to know that all of our advancements, whether we make them politically, whether we make them technologically, they always have to be rooted in consciousness, in spirit-related consciousness, and to keep that in mind. So this is where she says, but the human being of the new time, the human being of the Aquarius era, now faces an easily solvable problem. For if he now lays a foundation stone of the truth, the spiritual truth, then he gains a whole new structure of philosophical and psychological values for a happy, free, and peaceful spiritual life in the future. A free spiritual life which is based on everything that represents the best in the cultural and spiritual inheritance of the earth. So that is important about the New Age, and that's why the Pleiadians came during this time to give this message, part of their purpose there. And I have two more here. She says, the human being should try to react to the word or the term creation as if something very beautiful or good is being referred to always, through which a change should be effected in his thinking when creating. Okay, so when we think about what humanity is creating together, whether it be greener energy, whether it be nanobot technology in order to be a micro bot that can go into the body and can cure cancer and can remove certain types of DNA coding, basically, that has caused people problems. This is the type of future that can actually progress life. So when we move in flow with what is happening in terms of trying to make life longer and have more people be healthier for a longer period of time and less suffering, then this is actually doing the goal of creation. Basically, that's what she's saying. And that we're moving into a more peaceful existence for everyone and more free to express creation itself. In the course of time, everything possible may happen, which keeps the human being from planned action. Yet the human being who lives in accord with spirit knows no bounds and does not allow himself to be kept from his determinations by any kind of events or bad future outlooks. For him, the future already exists in the present. So everything must be done here and now in order to achieve the highest spiritual state and the highest sense or state of consciousness. He does not know the fear of the future, nor fear about the future, because they only exist in a material, intellectual way of thinking, but never in spiritual, intellectual thinking, in which the future is as present as the present itself. Thereby, the human being who lives in accord with the spirit can and may solve the problems of tomorrow and the next day already here and now, and steer them along the desired paths. To think for and with the spirit brings only advantages to every life form. Therefore, the human being should raise himself more and more through intensive seeking and searching into the state of spiritual thinking and into the knowledge about creational truth and wisdom. And so that is what the Pleiadians have to say. So I went through and I picked out basically everything on technology. I did want to go back to the first part of the really interesting part about the ships that are both inorganic and organic, and the automatons, the robots, the automatic program type of life forms that assist in helping to maintain the ship's integrity, and also the idea of having even robots that would be able to have that type of intelligence to be able to communicate with humans and to be able to listen to them. One thing that is always very apparent in the Pleiadian teachings is that as humanity continues down this path of technology, they need to remember their spiritual self. And when they remember their spiritual self, they will never create creations such as robots or AI or any type of programs that could take them over, because they will, if they are spiritually conscious and aware, they will always be the masters of their creations. And as the Pleiadians say in one of their teachings that I have said before on other videos, with wisdom and love, the human being is master over all creations. So if humans themselves contain wisdom and love, they will always be able to keep their creations in control, because they will be in touch with the true spirit of creation itself in the universe. And so that will really show a reality that is in flow of life. And then there will be a mirror back to humanity to show the progressiveness that they have entered into spiritually. So the idea of robots or any type of rogue programs like Skynet really cannot happen to a spiritually conscious species. And so this is what humans are evolving to. These are messages from 1975, and we are in 2020. And I see that we are constantly talking about getting in touch with the true spirit of creation. We are constantly aware of it. We are moving towards, I believe, a planet that is awakening in this way. So there's really nothing to fear, as the Pleiadians did say, about the future, as long as you really know who you are, and you know that you are in control of all of your creations, and that there really is no such thing as the future, but it is the present moment itself that really matters. And if you are fully aware of yourself in that present, then you will be able to move towards a future of your desire and of your liking, and that will be more peaceful for others. So this is the Pleiadian secret of technology. It is merged with nature. It is organic and inorganic. It is in a way where they have complete control over their own creations. There is no fear in them. There is no fear in their hearts. So they are not to become enslaved or taken over by their creations, because they always know who they are, spiritually. And so if humanity can do that as they evolve technologically, then there will be no issues in the future. So that's all I really have to say. And I really do believe that. And I have seen evidence of it too. And so this is some of the glimpses of the future that we can look forwards to if we continue on this path and we work in kind of the same way that the Pleiadians did at kind of unveiling their potential throughout the ages and where they get to. So there's some really exciting things, I think, to look forward to New Earth. So I will put this in the playlist of New Earth so that others can see that this is a possibility for humans if they are able to be conscious of the laws that we find in nature, that we can apply to the whole universe and to ourselves. And then we can apply that to technology and allow technology to be used to give us more efficient lives and to help bring a more peaceful and desirable type of lifestyle for all souls. And that is the goal of creation. It's a really beautiful goal, to make sure that every single soul really enters into a life that they truly desire to live. And we can get there in many ways together, but we just have to remember that we are creating this world together, and we need to remember our true goals of unity, friendship, and bring us into the future in that way. So I will take a look at all your comments, and please leave some comments below if you didn't get a chance to jump onto this live. I will do maybe another video to address any types of questions that you may have. I didn't want to make this too long today, but I did want to give you basically all of the messages on technology to just give you a little bit of glimpse of what the future may have in store. But we must always remember that there's a great balance, and we need to remember that, because if we don't, then we can lose ourselves in our technologies. So it's about remembering our inner nature as well as outer nature, and remember really how to solve problems in terms of technology that is not going to hurt our life forms. So this is a problem to solve, but I believe and have faith in the minds of many scientists that are working very hard and have already discovered some incredible things for humanity. So we are in exciting times, and I look forward to seeing what more is in store, 20 years down the road. And it's just exciting to watch it all unfold. So we shall see what happens. But remember these spiritual teachings of the Pleiadians, and I hope that they give you some hope for the future, and they help to alleviate you from fear. Just remember who you truly are, and remember the spirit of creation within, and then that way all of your creations will always know their masters. So everyone take care, and I will see you all in the next video.